Welcome to my Tactics in the Scotch course. I am happy to present you more than 50 combinations, all from recent years, which will help you understand what Scotch is about. Many tactical motifs are covered. I explain how one should think and how to spot a tactical blow. You will find fresh opening ideas as well. I will show some traps and also some tips when playing the endgames resulting from this tricky opening. One must be able to use the Scotch as a weapon after studying this course, and one must also improve his combinational view. I hope you will enjoy, as I most certainly did. In the first part, we will examine tactical positions which have a forced solution. The examples are from all the stages of the game: the opening, middle game, and end game. When the position arises on the board, you can pause the video, which I actually recommend doing, and try to find the solution by yourself. When you feel that you've got it right, you can resum the video and check whether your solution was correct. Don't worry if you don't get them right in the beginning. It's a long journey, and after going through it, your tactical view will improve a lot, and I am not talking just about the Scotch here. The combinations which come up in the opening are mostly there because one side is behind with his development. When you see that your opponent takes too long time with his king in the center without castling, seek for central breakthroughs and sacrifices to open up your opponent's king. Let's start with our first example in the Scotch. E4, E5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, e takes, knight takes, bishop c5, bishop e3, queen to f6, c3, knight g to e7, queen to d2. And now black made a mistake by playing short castle. I will give you a few seconds. Maybe you can try to spot the correct move. It is knight to b5. I hope that you found it. The pawn on c7 is weak, and so is the bishop on c5. Things which we are exploiting with our knight to b5 move. Now black cannot defend both of his pieces. So bishop takes e3 followed. Queen takes e3. Now how to defend the pawn on c7? It was possible to play queen to e5, and I think it was better than the move played in the game. Let's examine this. Queen to e5. Now I guess that the player playing black was afraid of some f4 move, but then he probably missed that knight to d5 would follow. Otherwise, the queen would have to go away from defending the c7 pawn. But after knight to d5, black is actually winning because we have to go away with the queen, and then he takes on f4. Well, of course he can take on e5, but we can take on e5, I mean, but then knight to e3 follows, and our pawn structure, as you can see, is completely ruined. So, in the game, so I wanted to show you the best move after queen to e5. Well, we saw that f4 is not working, so knight to d2 would be the best move. We want to play knight to f3, and then the queen will be attacked again, but this time the pawn on f2 will be on place to defend our queen, so he would not have any jumps with the knight. Let's say if a6, then knight to f3, and when the queen moves away, we just capture the pawn with a pawn up and winning position. In the game, the player playing with the black pieces tried to defend it actively by playing d5. Knight takes c7, tempi move, attacking the rook on a8, rook to b8, forced, he takes d5, attacking the knight on c6, knight to f5, queen to d2. We have to go to d2 because, well, at an eventual queen e2, maybe he will have in mind some pins over the e file. Queen d2, queen e5 check, bishop e2. Well, it's not a problem that he can capture the knight on c7 because his knight on c6 is attacked as well. He tried to make another tempi move by playing rook to d8. Now again, he wants to take the knight on c7, and now we would not be able to take the knight on c6 because the queen is pinned. So queen to c2, queen c7, d takes c6, queen takes, and short castle, with one pawn up and a completely winning position. So the conclusions of this example are: when you see that your opponent has two undefended pieces, or even sometimes even one is enough, then you can try to see if it's possible to exploit it. Because this is how tactics actually appear on the board, when one piece or more pieces are left without any defense. They are called unstable pieces. Let's move forward to the next example. Here is the next position we'll examine. It is black to move here. You can see that white didn't succeed in castling his king. Maybe you can use this info in trying to find the solution. I'll give you a few seconds. Well, the move is f5, with the obvious idea that after e takes f5, black plays rook to e8, pinning the queen to the king. And after an eventual knight to e4, d5 would follow, and the queen will be lost anyways, because after some f takes g6, for example, rook takes e4, and the queen is still pinned. So f5, white of course has spotted this, as it was a strong player playing here, Sabrina Vega, 24-25 IM from Spain. She played queen c4 check, an intermediate move which black had to see before playing f5, of course, king to h8, and now e takes f5. Now the queen is on c4, so it cannot be pinned anymore. What would be the best move here? In the game, it was d5, which followed, and it was not the most precise continuation. It would have been the best to take on f5 immediately. And now we want still to play d5, but also we prevent white from making a long castle, because the pawn on f2 is hanging. So bishop takes f2, and we would just be left with one pawn up. In the game, black played d5 instead, which was not the best continuation, as after queen takes d5, bishop takes f5, long castle. Black is still a little bit more pleasant, though it's not the same advantage he would get if taking on f5 immediately. So the conclusion of this example, another situation when you can start searching for some tactics is when your opponent's king is still in the center. You can try opening up some lines and starting to create threats against your opponent's king. Here is the next example. It is black to play in this position. White has just played g3. I'll give you a few seconds to try to spot the correct move. Well, it is d5. I hope that you found it. It is a quite typical breakthrough in the Scotch for black. You will see many more examples featuring this idea. The point is that we want to open up the white squared bishop, which is usually a bad piece in the Scotch. Well, not exactly a bad piece, but one which is quite problematic to develop. So d5 opens up the center. You can see that, like in the previous example, the white king is stuck in the center. So we are trying to open up some files around it. d5. If he takes on d5, then there are many compelling options here. We can take off with the queen, attacking the rook on h1, and also adding some threats to the d2 pinned knight. And you can see that after rook to g1, well, we can play either bishop to g4, another interesting attacking move, exploiting the fact that the white queen cannot take on g4 because of queen to d2 mate. So taking on d5 is not really an option. In the game, white chose to play e takes d6, which is the most principled variation here. So rook to e8 followed, a very aesthetical move. I really liked it. The idea is that by playing this move, black is preventing white from castling, because then the queen on e2 would be left with too little defenders. Also, if taking on e6, then we have rook takes e6 check, and black has a winning position, because both after king to d1, the rook takes d6, making a deadly pin of the knight on d2. Let's say some bishop c1, then bishop g4 check, bishop e2 take, rook e8 check, all fours. And now if the king goes to d1, continuing to defend the knight on d2, then just rook e to d8, and there are too many pieces attacking the poor knight on d2. It's impossible to defend it, and we'll just have a piece up. Instead, if after rook e6 check, white would play bishop to e2, then c5 would follow. You can see that the pawn on c7 is not so significant in this position, because white is left with his king in the center and all his pieces pinned. So the knight on d2, the bishop on e2, and by playing c5 we want to enter with our white squared bishop into the game. So bishop b7 will appear as the next move, threatening the rook on h1, and also threatening to play some bishop to f3. And white's position is really, really bad. Well, in the game he played bishop e2, c5. So here was the example. Let's draw some conclusions out of it. Again, like in the previous position, be aware that when your opponent's king is stuck in the center, you can have some ideas of breaking up the center with some blow, like d5 or f5. It is many times the best solution in this kind of positions. The next idea I like particularly a lot, so I want to show it from the beginning of the game, as there are a few moves. e4, e5, knight e3, knight c6, d4, e takes, knight f6, knight takes, e takes. So this is kind of the main line. After e5, it will be one of the main variations of the Scotch. Instead, in the game, it was played queen to e2, which is a very rare move, meant probably to surprise black. And I liked the reaction black had a lot. He played a very interesting idea. I'll give you a few seconds. Maybe you will be able to spot it. Of course, it is not winning the game on the spot, but it is a nice way to try to play against this variation. So I hope you found it. It's d5. Well, it is kind of an unexpected move, right? The queen goes on e2 and now you play d5, allowing white to take on d5 with check. So black is basically sacrificing 2 pawns, but he wants to get an advantage in development, because as you can see, all white's pieces are on the last rank. So bishop to e7 here, d takes c6. White is asking what will happen if I'm taking both pawns. The answer is simple, short castle. Okay, now we can see that all black's pieces are active. Only the bishop on c8 is waiting to move somewhere, maybe here, maybe on g4. And black definitely has more than enough compensation for the 2 sacrificed pawns. I suggest we follow up a bit with the game because it's short and quite interesting. Queen to d3. Of course, we don't want to exchange the queens, so knight to d5. a3. Knight b4 was a quite unpleasant threat. Bishop to g5. Opening up the e line. Now some rook e8 may be on the board of the day. c4. Counter-attacking. Trying to take knight on d5, but oh well. Bishop takes c1, c takes d5, queen to g5. A very nice move. It is meant not to let white develop the bishop on e2, as the pawn on g2 is under attack. So white played h4 here, queen to f6, queen to c3. Of course, white's dream is to exchange the queens, which will not gonna happen here. Rook to e8 check, bishop e2, bishop takes b2. Quite beautiful, right? The pawn on b2 was still under attack. Queen takes f6. Now white was probably happy because of exchanging the queens, but it was already too late. Bishop takes, rook on a2, as the rook on a1 was attacked. Bishop to a6, creating a quite an unpleasant pin on the e file. a4, bishop to c4, rook c2, and bishop to d3. And unfortunately for white, he had nothing better to do than to give away the exchange by playing knight to a3. And after bishop takes c2, black is left with an exchange up and a completely winning position. So, of course, all the moves were not forced here. White could have defended better. But as you see, white had 23-66, so he was quite a good player. While with black pieces, Grandmaster from Hungary played. And this is how a game can actually develop. I liked a lot this d5 idea, which we met in our previous examples as well, and which will appear in some future positions. I hope you liked this example and keep moving to the next examples. Let's continue our journey through the tactics in the opening stage of the Scotch. I want to show this game from the beginning as well because the tactics came quite early and it's very beautiful. So e4, e5, knight e3, knight c6, d4, take, knight b4 check, bishop b4 check, sorry. It is not very popular variation. c3, bishop to c5, bishop b3, bishop b6. It's all kind of played many times. Knight f5, g6, take, knight to e3, knight f6, f3, short castle, c4. Well, here you will discover in some later examples the main move. Black tried to play some sideline by choosing knight to h5, queen to d2, f5. He tried an aggressive approach. E takes, rook to e8, trying to create some threats, exploiting the pin on the e file. Knight to c3. Now queen h4 check followed. If queen g5, then, well, the pin is not dangerous because our knight will defend both the knight on e3 and attack at some point the pawn on c7. Instead, he played queen to h4 check. And this is the position I want you to find a solution in. I'll give you a few seconds again. Obviously, there's not a big choice because it's check. Well, you should have spotted by now the move g3. The idea is that after knight takes g3, h takes g3, queen takes h1, white has sacrificed an exchange, but after long castle, the compensation is too big and too dangerous. So we can say quite firmly that white is almost winning. Of course, there is need of some precise moves. So let's see what followed. Queen takes f3. Well, the main idea is that the bishop on c8 is totally undeveloped and black's king is quite exposed. Also, the knights on c3 and e3 are quite dangerous pieces. So knight e to d5 followed. Of course, it is better because it opens up the queen on d2. And also attacks on c7, threatening to make a fork. And attacks on f6, threatening to make yet another fork. So all the board is in green arrows now. But what to do? For black, it is quite difficult to give any advice. If you would have played queen takes f5, then like we discussed, knight takes c7 would follow it with a fork. Instead, if you would play, I don't know, some rook to d8, then, well, there would be many continuations, like f takes g6, with all these pieces on the queen side quite far away from defending the poor king on g8. Instead, in the game, Grandmaster Sanikidza played rook f8, and his lower-rated opponent went ahead with taking on g6, h takes g6, bishop to g2, attacking the queen. Well, here black was brave enough to take the pawn on g3, knight to e4 with tempo, attacking the queen. Queen to e5, queen h6, with a devastating threat of taking on g6 with a mate on h1 to probably follow shortly. The main point is that queen g7 doesn't work because of a very beautiful move, knight d to f6, check. Rook takes, knight takes, and now the queen cannot capture because of bishop to d5 check, and the king has no place to go. And in the game, he played knight to e7 instead, but then knight to g5, threatening a mate on h7, rook to f7, what else he could do? Knight takes e7, queen e7, and bishop d5. Pinning the rook with the deadly threat of queen h7 check because the rook is pinned, and then queen to h8 mate. So here black resigned. Well, I hope that you liked this idea. Be aware that sometimes you can sacrifice material for obtaining some advantage in development, and you can combine it with some ideas of attacking your opponent's king.